What do you do when someone breaks into your house and has your nephew at gunpoint? Hi, I'm Holliday, and this is Chloroform and Chillz. Again, I'm on my boneless couch, and I'm here with another case. Today, we are in Philadelphia. Yes, my home city, Philly. I'm here to talk about a case that I never heard before, so bear with me, especially with pronunciation also. So, this case is the Lex Street Massacre, where 10 individuals were, let's just get into the case because I think it's one of those that you just have to hear and be like, oh my God, I didn't know this was happening in Philly. Let's start. This case starts off in Philly on Lex Street. This street is known for, that's Theo click clacking away. This street is known for abandoned houses and a lot of drug dealings, but mostly right now there are people squatting in a crack house. This house on Lex Street was being heated by kerosene heaters, so that should already tell you what's going on a little bit in the neighborhood. It's really run down. It looks, I'm not gonna lie, it looks a little scary. Like living in Philly, I've seen some abandoned houses. I've seen them. Looking at these pictures from the early 2000s, it looks I don't know, it just looks scary to me. But moving on. December 28th, 2000, just 3 days after Christmas. This house on Lex Street was filled with 10 individuals, and at least that night, 7 of them were killed and 3 of them were injured. These individuals that were in the Lex Street house were Samuel Malik Harris, a 15-year-old, George Porter, also known as George Gibson, also his street name or nickname on the block was Jig, Calvin Hilton Jr., also known as CJ, Tyrone Long Jr., Yvette Long, Bruce Carter, Craig Kilby, Edward Shudler, Ronette Abrams, and Alfred Goodwin. About these 10 individuals, I am going to tell you some information about some of them. It is pretty rough to hear. Samuel Harris, who goes by Malik, he was only 15 years old. He was in the 8th grade. And I want y'all to remember 8th grade is middle school. He loved basketball and football. He was very streetwise at a young age. And personally to me, I think at the age of 15, he's very young to be inside of a crack house. So I don't know what dealings he had going on in there. There's another individual that is in this house. Supposedly he was there only to play video games, but we'll touch on that in a moment. George Porter, aka George Gibson, but also on the street, or his nickname was Jig. He was a popular West Philly high school senior. He had dreams of going into the Marines so I could pay for college. Unfortunately though, George was into the drug trade. He was allegedly a leader of the, I guess, gang that affiliated inside the Lex Street house. Calvin Hilton Jr., who was also known as CJ. He's an Overbrook High School graduate who at the time was just about to start computer classes, and supposedly from comments from his family, he was only at the Lex Street house to play video games. His family say that he was just caught at the wrong place at the wrong time. Then next on our list is Tyrone Long Jr. He is 18 years old. Tyrone was an aspiring rapper and he had books filled with raps about non-violence in the city of Philadelphia. And next we have Yvette Long, who is Tyrone Jr.'s aunt. She had a room upstairs that she was renting out in the Lex Street house. So on December 28th, 2002, 4 gunmen run into the Lex Street house. Everybody on the downstairs floor, they're gathered up and told to lay on the floor and don't look around. And while this is happening, they start to rob them. They take money, valuables, clothing, anything that they can get their hands on. And they also then start to hear some commotion upstairs, the 4 gunmen. 2 gunmen go upstairs and one of them actually takes Tyrone Long Jr. They take Tyrone to his aunt's room, Yvette Long, and they burst open into her room, point a gun at Tyrone's head, and Tyrone is quoted by his aunt saying, "Auntie, I'm scared." They gather up the rest of the individuals that are upstairs and bring them downstairs. They also rob them, and they tell all of them to lay in a semicircle and to put their heads down. Once everybody is laying down and their heads are down, gunfire erupts inside the Lex Street house. 7 out of 10 of the individuals inside the home are killed instantly. 3 are injured. And remember, not even remember, I don't think I even said it, but this is all happening at 8 p.m. Yeah, 8 o'clock at night. And I don't know about you, but at 8 o'clock at night, I'm pretty up moving, doing my thing. So I think it's very bold that they did this. It's not even at the dead of night. It's in the beginning of when nighttime really starts. And what makes you think that people around the neighborhood aren't listening into the neighborhood to hear gunfire go off? Do you know how many rounds they had to let off to kill that many people? I mean, it could have been just all assassination style, just one to the back of the head, but no, they shot their bodies up. And only 3 were able to survive this, but they all were injured. All of them had bullets riddled through their bodies. This is very heavy, but I do have a question to all my like spiritual girlies and guys out there. Do you think the area around Lex Street is haunted? Because that was a big tragedy to kill 7 people at once. That's a lot of energy to just let rock off, you know? Where did it go? Because, you know, energy can't be destroyed, so where did that go? And just think about it. What if there are ghosts and they're just stuck in a loop? Oh, that has to be like so terrifying. I am so into the paranormal. It doesn't make any sense. But like just thinking about that, because when something tragic happens, and you don't know that you're instantly dead, I think it's very much a shock to your soul or system or your energy that you don't know what's going on, right? So it makes me wonder, like, are they wandering the new houses that are there now? Because if you don't know, the Lex Street houses, they all were demolished. So they rebuilt on that land. I wonder, is it like haunted? So back to our case. Once the gunfire was done, neighbors, they call the police. They call the police. The police are on their way. Neighbors even said that they see men running down the street from the Lex Street house, and they are just waiting on the police to arrive to investigate what these gunshots are. Police swarmed Lex Street. Even the police captain at the time, who is Sylvester Johnson in the 2000s, he was speechless when he saw the carnage, saw the people being wheeled away on gurneys. He just couldn't believe that this happened. He just never seen so many casualties in one house before. Even the Philadelphia mayor at the time, who was Mayor Street, he came even to the site of the carnage that happened on Lex Street. He said that we are going to make sure that we find out who did this, and we are not going to lack on resources when it comes to how we figure out who did this. During this time, when first responders, the police captain get there, families are being notified by other people in the community that there has been a shooting on Lex Street. So some family members come up to the house to see if they can see if their loved ones are alive or deceased or just injured. Tyrone Jr.'s uncle, who was also, I believe, Yvette's brother, he actually was notified by neighbors that there was a shooting in the house that they know his family resides in or is just in for the time being. There are other family members that show up, such as mothers to other young children that are inside the house. Remember, I said that some of these people are between the ages of 15, 18, 19. They're young. The death toll was 7 people. There were 10 individuals inside this house, and I'm going to read you who was killed during this massacre. George Porter, aka George Gibson, who also goes by Jig, he was 18 years old. Tyrone Long Jr., he was 18 years old. Samuel Harris, aka Malik, he was only 15 years old. Calvin Hilton Jr., who also goes by CJ, he was only 19. Ronetta Abrams, she was only 33 years old. Edward Shudler, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, he was 44 years old. And Alfred Goodwin, he was 54 years old. The people who were injured were Yvette Long, Bruce Carter, and Craig Kilby. While the investigation started to go into action at Lex Street, these 3 individuals were fighting for their lives in the hospital. Philadelphia PD, they are assuming that this is most likely a drug turf war that's going on, and somebody wanted some turf, so they ended up killing all these individuals in a house, which I do find out is odd, because when I say they were going foot to ass when it came to investigation, only 2 weeks later after the shooting, they made an arrest. They arrested 4 individuals. They arrested Jermel Lewis, Sakanyuk, Hezekiah Thomas, Quinette Perrin, and they all range from the ages of 23 and 19. Hearing that an arrest was made, the community was thrilled. But I will say personally, 2 weeks into an investigation, not saying that it can't happen, I think it's just very odd that they were able to find these people so quickly. Personally, if anybody is into true crime, we know that confessions can be coerced. And unfortunately, that's what happened with the Lex Street murders. 4 individuals were wrongfully accused of a massacre. Jermell Lewis was a close friend. Jermell Lewis was a friend of George Porter, aka George Gibson, aka Jig. I think I will just call him George. I really think their relationship wasn't friendship. I think it was like drug dealer and consumer, or drug dealer and buyer, however you want to say it. Jermell Lewis was taken into questioning randomly by police, and during that time of questioning, he was high on drugs, not in his right mind, and somehow, some way, he confessed to the murders on Lex Street. He even was able to somehow, some way, form a story. These 4 other individuals, which would have been Sakanyuk, Hezekiah Thomas, and Quinte Perrin. Somehow, Jermell Lewis was able to conjure up a story that put all of them at the scene, all of them shooting all these individuals and running away and getting away with valuables of jewelry and clothing. But really, later on, Jermell Lewis comes forward with a lawyer saying like, hey, this was coerced out of me. I was not in my right mind. I was high off of drugs. I could not really say what was going on. So they said as long as I confessed, I could go home. So I signed a confession, a false confession. Jermell Lewis and the 3 other individuals that he said committed this crime with him, they were not only ones that were pressured into confessing. You know who else was confessing while she was still actively trying to get better in the hospital? Yvette Long. Yes, while Yvette was under pain medication and severe trauma, police kept coming to her with lineups telling her to identify who did it, who was doing what. But it took some time for Yvette to come to terms that like, I made a false confession and I need to rectify the situation. It was so strong in Yvette's heart that she ended up getting a psychiatrist that could help her work through her trauma. Her trauma being worked through, she was able to find out who actually did it. And she actually does come out later and apologize. She even goes and testifies saying like, I made a false confession. This is not true. I was just under a lot of trauma, a lot of pressure. I wasn't even in my right mind myself. I was still under my own dealing with drugs. This massacre was so big in Philly in the 2000s. They were trying to close it up quick and tight. But how I feel is that when this massacre happened, nobody could ever say who did it, only because it was 8 p.m. at night. It's cold outside, so I'm assuming it's winter. It's dark. People only said they saw men running down the street. They didn't see no faces, they didn't hear no names, nothing. The only people that would be able to identify anybody is the individuals in the house, and only 3 survived, and only one of them is talking, and that's Yvette Long. And due to these false confessions, Jermell Lewis, Hezekiah Thompson, Sakanyuk, and Quinte Perrin, they ended up staying in prison for 19 months until the real killers were caught. What happened is January 3rd, 3 weeks after the massacre that happened on Lex Street, a random shooting occurs. A gun used in that shooting actually matches the gun used at the Lex Street massacre. A man named Shaheen Black is the owner of this firearm, and he was picked up by police. He was picked up by police for this random shooting, and while they had his gun in custody, they decided, man, let's file it away and test it. And by testing his gun, the ballistics from his gun, it came back to the Lex Street massacre. And once they presented this information to Shaheen Black, Shaheen got violently ill and made a full confession. Case closed. But that's not really the case here. Otherwise, we still wouldn't be here. Shaheen Black admitted to investigators that, yeah, I was there during the massacre and I was just a lookout. I didn't really see anything. I saw them shoot them, but I was just looking out to make sure nobody else was around to see any crimes occur. Even in this interview, Shaheen Black named 3 other individuals that was there that night with him when the massacre happened. But for some reason, Shaheen Black decided to recant his whole confession. Yeah, he decided to recant everything. He said that I just wanted the death sentence. I really didn't do any of this information. So from him recanting and him saying he wanted the death sentence, Philadelphia PD, for some odd reason, listen to me, for some odd reason, thought this man was mentally ill and just wanted to be killed. But in 2002, a man named Dawood Farouki, he was arrested on federal weapons charges. They realized that he and Shaheen Black run in the same circle and are, come to find out, they're actually friends. So they asked him about the Lex Street murders. They asked Dawood Farouki, what can you tell us about the Lex Street murders? And he actually corroborates a lot of what Shaheen Black was saying about that night. Dawood Farouki was even able to describe some of the valuables they took from the individuals that they ended up murdering, such as jewelry, a jacket, some clothing, I think shoes, anything that they had that was valuable. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised, any products that George Porter had, I wouldn't be surprised if they took that too. This information was new to Philly PD because they really thought that they had their guys. They thought Jamel Lewis, Hezekiah Thompson, Sakanyuk, and Quinte Perrin, they thought they were their guys. But now hearing this new information that maybe we don't have the guys and these are the real killers sitting in front of us, our case is starting to fall apart. Knowing that the case is falling apart, Philly PD had to act quick. So they tried to push it through. They tried to push it through for the 4 men that they charged before Jamel Lewis and crew. They tried to push it through to charge them with the death penalty so they wouldn't have to make their wrongs right. With tensions rising of both families, people started to fight at court. People started to fight at the courthouse, and once they saw this was going on, the judge that was residing this case, he decided to put a gag order on all defendants, all police, all prosecutors, and all lawyers because information was getting out and people were taking this information and running with it. It was starting to get a little dangerous. All the information that was actually being leaked out, and also the new evidence that they found that maybe Shaheen Black and his friend Dawood Farouki and maybe 2 other men actually committed this crime. The prosecutor later that week had to dismiss all charges against Jermaine Lewis, Sakanyuk, Hezekiah Thomas, and Quinte Perrin. All their charges were dismissed. Even though their charges was dismissed, that doesn't mean that they were innocent, because in the eyes of the community, they were guilty. They were charged, they were guilty. So they walked around with bullseyes on their backs, on the back of their heads. People still, even if the charges were dismissed, they still felt like they were guilty. So they had to lay low for a little bit. Then they were able to obtain compensation from the city of Philadelphia. And that was $1.9 million that was spread between 4 of them evenly. Once the settlement happened, the DA did come out and apologize to the 4 men that they falsely accused of this massacre. They apologized for accusing the 4 men and not using the information that they obtained faster to have them released. In November 2022, new arrests were actually made in the case of the Lex Street murders. In November 2022, 4 new men were arrested. Can you guess who they are? Shaheen Black, Bruce Venti, Dawood Farouki, and Khalid Farouki. Everyone thought this was about a drug turf war, and it wasn't. Come to find out, this massacre happened allegedly because George Porter, aka George Gibson, on the street they call him Jig, allegedly he sold Shaheen Black a car, and Shaheen Black thought that he overcharged him, that it wasn't a good sell. So Shaheen Black decided to take 4 of his friends and go into the Lex Street house and massacre 7 out of 10 people over a bad car deal. In this case, the DA was lucky because one of the 4 men actually wanted to talk. His name is Bruce Venti. He told police that I didn't do any of the shooting. I was just a driver. I don't know if anybody knows, even if you are just a driver to a crime, you are an accessory to murder. Bruce pled guilty to 7 counts of 3rd-degree murder. He was given 15 to 30 years, and in 2019, not too long ago, he was paroled. You heard me. Bruce Vinny was paroled after helping people massacre individuals. Bruce was only able to be paroled only if he testified against Shaheen Black and the Faruqi brothers. Shaheen Black was even able to get a deal as well. He was sentenced to 7 life sentences without parole, and this was only because he wanted to escape the death penalty. He even admitted to killing George Gibbs, aka Jig, and Tyrone Long Jr. So in 2004, the Faruqi brothers went on trial. The prosecutors actually had this case all wrapped up. They had the evidence against them, but they still decided to fight. I think it's also because the Faruqi brothers were also handling federal charges as well. During the trial, they presented ballistic evidence, and the ballistic evidence matched up to both of the brothers' personal guns. The ballistic evidence matched up to the Lex Street Massacre and to other shootings in Philadelphia. Can you believe that? Oh my God. A jailhouse snitch was also able to come forward, a jailhouse informant was also able to come forward and testify that the brothers or one of the brothers did admit to the murders at the Lex Street house. Yvette Long was even able to come back and testify about making a false statement, talking about how she was pressured, and due to the trauma of that night, she just wasn't able to make good decisions or give good information. Yvette Long, even during this trial, she apologized for putting the wrong men behind bars. Even Jermell Lewis came forward during this trial as well, and he talked about how he made false statements due to being under the influence and not in sound mind, and he apologized as well for making false statements. After 13 days of testifying, Jawad Faruqi and Khalid Faruqi guilty. They found the brothers of first-degree murder, 7 counts of it, robbery, conspiracy, and attempted murder, because remember, there are 3 individuals that survived this massacre. The brothers were given a deal also to escape the death penalty. They were given 7 life sentences, and they gave up their right to ever put in any plea deal so they could try to get out. So I would like to end this case with a little piece. The house on Lex Street, it was demolished. Tyrone Long mother actually had a quote after the Faruqi brothers trial, and I would like to end it on that. God has answered my prayers, and they'll never be on the streets again. That is our case for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is a little history in Philly that I didn't know about. Now that I'm learning about it, it's like, whoa. And I actually looked up the Lex Street, and they remodeled the whole thing. I'm gonna put a little picture up here. They remodeled the whole thing. They look like a little bit of little nice houses, you know? That is our case this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.